Have you ever felt it? That sudden heavy weight in your chest the moment someone says, "Let's go out tonight." It is not that you hate people. It is not that you are antisocial or bitter. But the very thought of leaving your sanctuary, getting dressed, and navigating the unpredictable tides of the outside world feels like preparing to climb a mountain when you are already perfectly content at the base. For some, the most beautiful sound in the world isn't a bustling cafe or the music of a party. It is the click of a lock turning in their own front door. This is the world of the homebody, but not the version society often mocks. Today, we are not talking about laziness or a lack of ambition. We are peeling back the layers of a deep psychological phenomenon called home-centered orientation. We are going to explore why, for many of us, staying home is not a retreat from life, but a profound, conscious choice to finally start living it on our own terms. In a culture that demands we be everywhere, see everything, and document every moment, the person who stays home is often viewed with suspicion. We label them as depressed, agoraphobic, or boring. But what if staying home is actually a sign of a highly functioning internal world? What if the four walls of your house are not a cage, but a canvas where your true self finally has room to breathe? If you are someone who finds genuine joy in a quiet evening alone, or if you have ever felt a strange sense of guilt for declining an invitation you never wanted to accept, this is for you. We are going to dive deep into the neurological and developmental reasons why your mind functions so differently from those who cannot stand being alone. We are going to break the stigma and explain why, for your nervous system, home is the only place where you are truly safe to be yourself. To understand the psychology of those who never want to leave the house, we have to travel back in time. We have to look at the foundation upon which your adult identity was built. For many homebodies, this orientation started long before they had a lease or a mortgage. Imagine a child coming home from school to an empty house. In the world of psychology, we often talk about the latchkey kid. This is the child who let themselves in, made their own snack, and spent hours in the quiet of a house while their parents were working or absent. In those hours of solitude, a powerful psychological coding was taking place. Most children are taught to look outward for entertainment and validation. They are shuttled from playdates to organized sports, always performing under the gaze of an adult. But the latchkey child learned something different. They learned that home is their territory. It is a space where they do not have to fake a smile. They do not have to meet anyone's expectations. They do not have to manage anyone else's emotional energy. This early independence creates a unique relationship with solitude. While other children were learning to fear being alone, you were learning to master it. You learned that being alone does not mean being lonely. In fact, you discovered that your own company was quite interesting. You developed a radical self-reliance. You learned to find satisfaction in your own thoughts, your own hobbies, and your own rhythm. As an adult, this translates into a high level of autonomy. You do not need a crowd to tell you that you are okay. You do not need the noise of a bar to drown out your thoughts because you actually like your thoughts. When you choose to stay home, you are returning to that original state of freedom. You are reclaiming the only space where you are not a performer in someone else's play. For you, home is psychologically coded as the place of maximum authenticity. But there is another layer to this, one that involves our basic need for survival and safety. The outside world is, by its very nature, chaotic and unpredictable. When you step out your front door, you surrender control. You cannot control the weather, the traffic, the noise level, or the temperaments of the strangers you encounter. For many people, this unpredictability is stimulating. But for those with a home-centered orientation, it is often a source of profound sensory and emotional drain. This often stems from a childhood where the external world felt particularly unreliable. Perhaps you grew up in a home with high tension, or you faced rejection and bullying at school. In those moments, your room or your house became your fortress. It was the only place where you could create order in a world of chaos. As an adult, this need for environmental control remains a core part of your psychological makeup. At home, you are the architect of your reality. You control the lighting, the temperature, the scent, and most importantly, the social access. You decide who enters your space and when. This is not about being a control freak in a negative sense. It is about protecting a sensitive nervous system that has learned to value peace above all else. When you leave the house, your brain has to work overtime to scan for threats and navigate social cues. This is exhausting. At home, your nervous system can finally shift from a state of hypervigilance to a state of rest and digest. For you, the choice to stay home is a choice to conserve your vital energy. It is an act of self-preservation. Let's talk about something that we rarely admit out loud: the sheer exhaustion of social performance. Every time we interact with someone outside our inner circle, we are engaging in a script. We smile when we run into a neighbor. We engage in the ritualistic exchange of, "How are you?" and "I am fine." We perform enthusiasm for news we do not care about. We mask our boredom during meetings. These small performances may seem insignificant, but they accumulate. For the person who prefers to stay home, these interactions are not just tiring, they often feel fundamentally inauthentic. You see through the social theater. You recognize that most exchanges are just empty rituals, and you have decided that the cost of participation is simply too high. This often comes from a deep-rooted need for authenticity. Many homebodies were raised in environments where they learned to trust actions over words. They watched adults behave one way in public and another in private. This created a finely tuned detector for nonsense. You do not want to talk about the weather for 20 minutes with someone whose name you barely remember. You do not want to fake excitement for a plan you are already dreading. You value genuine connection, and you find that genuine connection is rarely found in the loud, crowded places society tells us we should enjoy. At home, there is no need for a mask. You can be tired. You can be silent. You can be exactly who you are without worrying about how you are being perceived. That freedom from required inauthenticity is, for you, psychologically priceless. There is another element crucial to understanding your psychology: a deeply rooted need for privacy. People who never want to leave the house often have very strong, clear boundaries around their personal life, their physical space, and their time. You are likely someone who does not feel the need to broadcast your daily activities on social media. You do not need to document an experience to validate that it actually happened. You do not need witnesses to your existence to feel like you are alive. This instinct for privacy often develops in those same childhood years we discussed. If you grew up in an environment where your privacy was constantly invaded, or conversely, if you were a latchkey kid who enjoyed complete, unsupervised freedom at home, that privacy became your psychological base. It became your security. Leaving the house for you feels like surrendering that precious privacy. It means being seen. It means being available for interaction whether you want it or not. It means your appearance, your behavior, and your very presence become subjects of observation for others. For someone with a high need for privacy, this can feel like a form of exposure or even vulnerability. Home is the only place where you can completely let your guard down. It is the place where no one is watching, where you do not have to curate your life, and where you never have to explain yourself. Why would you voluntarily leave a place of such profound security to enter a world that constantly demands you justify your choices? There is a fascinating contradiction here that we should call the competence paradox. Society often assumes that people who stay home are doing so because they cannot handle the outside world. There is a stereotype that homebodies are socially anxious or technically incompetent. But the reality is often the exact opposite. Many people who choose to stay home are actually highly competent at managing external demands. In fact, they have become so efficient at handling the necessary interactions of life that they have optimized them to a point where leaving the house is no longer required. You have likely mastered the systems of the modern world. You use delivery apps, remote work tools, digital banking, and strategic social management to create a life that serves your needs without draining your battery. When you grow up solving your own problems with limited resources, you develop a very practical kind of competence. You become an expert at processes and optimization. As an adult, you apply that same skill set to building an ecosystem within your four walls. To the outside observer, this looks like avoidance. To you, it is simply efficiency. Why waste 3 hours on a low-value social gathering when you can have a high-value intellectual or emotional experience in your own living room? You are not hiding from life. You are simply refusing to participate in the parts of it that offer no return on your investment of time and energy. Perhaps the most defining psychological trait of this orientation is the lack of a need for external validation. We live in a world that is addicted to likes, comments, and social approval. Most people derive their sense of worth from how others perceive their lifestyle, their travels, or their successes. But if you are a true homebody, your self-worth is generated from within. This is a rare and powerful psychological state. It often comes from learning very early that external validation is unreliable. If there was no one around to praise your achievements when you were young, you had to learn to provide that praise for yourself. You finished your work because you knew it was good. You made yourself a meal because you were hungry. You spent an afternoon reading because you enjoyed the story. This internal validation system is so well developed that external approval starts to feel hollow and unnecessary. What does a stranger's comment on a photo matter when you already know the value of the moment you lived? What does social media validation add to a quiet evening of genuine contentment? The answer is nothing. Home is the place where you can simply exist without performing for the gallery. Your worth is not determined by how many people saw you or approved of your choices. You are enough for yourself. In our current era, this psychology matters more than ever. We are living through a global epidemic of burnout, social media exhaustion, and the constant pressure to do more. We are told to go out, to network, to experience everything, and to prove we are living our best lives. But the people who stay home are quietly offering a different model of existence. You are proof that quiet contentment is just as valuable as curated excitement. You are showing that solitude is a choice, not a problem that needs to be solved. You are not broken. You are not missing out. You are not avoiding life. You are simply living it exactly as you choose, on your own terms, and within a space that honors your need for peace and authenticity. In a world that constantly demands you be somewhere else, doing something else, and being someone else, you have mastered the rarest skill of all, being perfectly content exactly where you are. If this sounds like you, or if you have a friend who is like this, know that it is a valid and even healthy way to navigate a chaotic world. It is not about being antisocial. It is about being selectively social and fiercely protective of your inner peace. We would love to hear your thoughts. Do you find your greatest strength within your own four walls? Share your story with us in the comments. We are all learning how to find our own version of home. In our next exploration, we go even deeper into the social battery. Have you ever wondered why some people can talk for hours while others feel drained after 5 minutes? We are breaking down the neurochemistry of social exhaustion and how to reclaim your energy without hurting your relationships. You won't want to miss it.